Hi, my name's Shane. I'm with my daughter, Adriana, who's 12. We saw a white Tic Tac from our patio. We have it all on video as well. There was no flashing lights.
If you were to imagine a skewer, going in a straight line like that, and you're pushing something against it, that's kind of like slowly, that's kind of how fast it is.
Yeah, so it was weird.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Debriefed and the final part of the 4CHAN Whistleblower. I know usually we upload on Fridays, but I thought we'd do something a little bit different this week, seeing as how we have the congressional hearing coming up on Wednesday, tomorrow. So spent all weekend editing this last part, which we'll get into. I'm talking to my future self right now. There's some time travel happening. Folks, you know the drill. Like, subscribe. And if you don't already know, there's a whole lot going on over at Patreon and YouTube memberships. We are pumping out content over there, ramping it up, and mostly because that pretty much sustains this channel. You better believe that I'm throwing some energy over there, and if you guys want to be a part of it, click the link below to join YouTube memberships or simply go to Patreon. Ton of extra free content. All right, folks, we are done paying the bills. It is currently, I'll tell you right now, it is 7:49 a.m. on Friday. We don't mess around over here. Now, before we get into the final installment of this alleged whistleblower on 4chan, we are going to do another patch review, but this week's patch review is going to be a bit different, as normally we do these NROL patches, the National Reconnaissance Office launch patch, but this one's a little bit different. Have a look at this little ditty. Yeah, folks, that's a real thing. That is a real thing. This is insane looking, but this is a patch that, some military personnel wore. Not any military personnel, by the way. So let's break it down. First off, this was worn by the 509 Division bombers. These were the pilots of the B-2 stealth bombers. Those really cool, sleek-looking airplanes that look like UFOs that were actually probably made at Area 51. But the 509 go back way farther than that. You see, the 509th Division was originally the bombers who dropped the bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima in 1945. So late in 1945, after that, the 509th actually moved. Guess where they moved? Yeah, Roswell, New Mexico. They were stationed at the Roswell Army Base in New Mexico and was renamed the 509th Bombardment Group, where it became the core of the newly formed Strategic Air Command. And so after that, they actually moved to the Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. And that's where they currently reside, where they have the stealth B-2 bombers. Their mission statement is execute nuclear operations and global strike anytime, anywhere. That sounds like something out of Team America, but that's a real thing.
The vision is America's premier bomb wing. Trusted airmen executing nuclear and conventional air power. Combat ready today, preparing for tomorrow.
Now, at the top of the patch features a prominent sentence which says, to serve man. How lovely. How lovely to serve man, to serve us. That is so cool. Except when you know where this originated from. Now, we'll get to that in a second. See, prior to serve man, this actually said classified flight test. Now, this patch was, as I understand it, not the official patch of the 509th bombers. This was kind of like more of a morale booster. And originally they had classified flight tests, but Air Force Command was like, yeah, you can't write classified on a patch. So change it up, and they changed it to this. Now, this just goes to show you how much fun these people are having with patches that they wear, because this quote, to serve man, actually comes from an episode of Twilight Zone, March 2nd, 1962. Season 3, episode 24, features aliens coming down to Earth and giving humanity books, which says, to serve man. And all is well and good up until the very last second of this episode, humans are gathered and herded into the UFOs by the aliens, and someone comes running with a book and says,
it's a cookbook!
And that was the plot twist of the episode. Great episode. Classic. And if that wasn't enough, at the very bottom it says, Gustatus Similis Pullus. Now that sounds very, Latin. And what that actually means is tastes like chicken. Not joking. That's what that means. Now we see this alien depicted sort of chomping down on this B-2 bomber. We also see these lines in the background, and we see what seems like either a pitchfork or an actual fork to the right of the alien, and on the left side of the alien is a knife. So it looks like a fork and knife, and then there's like this golden X. There's also this symbol on the B-2 bomber, the circle with this sort of golden little protrusion on it. So the alien is probably a nod to Roswell, seeing as that the 509th was actually the first military unit to report the recovery of the debris from the unidentified flying craft that crash landed in Roswell. So the 509th were the first responders. They were the first responders in 1947. They were also the ones who dropped nuclear bombs. Anytime we drop nuclear bombs, aliens show up. There's a whole connection to this specific unit already. Now, the lines in the back, as far as I can tell, this is my estimated guess on this, but I think those are like radar lines. Those are to represent the lines you would see on a radar, and that X might be some type of radar coordinate. And the reason I say that, because the lowercase sigma symbol, which is featured on the stealth bomber, that's what that is, the circle with the lines, a lowercase sigma symbol. And if we're discussing radar, that symbol represents a radar cross-section. So the RCS is actually a measurement of how detectable an object is on radar. And so this would make sense because the B-2 is a stealth fighter. So technically speaking, the RCS indicates how much power is scattered back to the radar source when it hits an object like an aircraft. A larger sigma value means the object reflects more radar energy, making it more easily detectable, while a smaller value implies a stealthier, less detectable object, much like the one depicted here. But naturally, it wasn't completely undetected, as there is an X on these lines. The alien did figure out where the bomber was, intercepted the bomber, got his fork and knife at the ready, and is ready to chomp down. And that, folks, is all I have for this patch here, and I think that's quite enough. Little to no speculation. I mean, we figured that one out, I'm pretty sure. Let me know in the comments if you think I've missed something on this patch. I would love to know. All right, folks, without any further ado, we're going to get into this right now. This is going to be the heftiest portion of the whistleblower files. Strap yourselves in, get yourself a coffee or a drink or something. And if you're listening to this in audio only, I appreciate you. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review and maybe some kind words over there on iTunes or Spotify. It helps out quite a bit. Also, just so you know, you can pick up the Area 52 patch, our very own little patch that you can slap on. You just iron these on, they're iron-on. You can pick these up at first.shop. All right, we're going to start off with just the original poster, the OP's comment here. He says, the way these are constructed, you cannot take an existing but damaged craft and just add on spare parts from another, close it up, and call it good. Human, quote-unquote, repairs only go so far on existing craft. Instead, we have a much shittier iteration of what they build. Some parts are not reused, they are just materials for testing or research. Once again, could be that I explained the process too poorly. We don't reassemble them. We quite literally bum parts and try to make our own. And some parts of the craft we make have to be human-made substitutions. The mechanism for piloting is one such part. We also add things. So this is very interesting to me because that is one of the speculations in UFO lore, is that how are they manning these crafts? How are they flying these crafts? Seemingly the one that Bob Lazar worked on. Now, he never went to the third floor or the uppermost floor. He wasn't allowed access to that. But from what he saw on the main floor, there was no such steering components or anything whatsoever. No computer, no nothing. So it leads us to believe that there might be some type of psionic or psychic ability that allows for your consciousness to interface with the technology and fly it using your mind. Like, that's the hypothesis anyways. And it seems like this guy agrees with that by saying the mechanism for piloting is something that they have to substitute. Question, what the F are you talking about? What actual data do we have on UAPs? Answer, I'm not surprised people think this way. There's a ton of shrouded information on this topic. You're telling me. Question, UFOs influencing human minds supposedly comes from government sources. Answer, I'd be more inclined to believe this aspect alone. A lot of posts in this thread made me wonder if there was more construction units, etc. I also found the memo post interesting, specifically because of the year mentioned. Now, this is the second time he mentions the Wilson-Davis memos. I have since dove into this memo and this interaction between Admiral Thomas Wilson and Eric Davis, and the year is interesting. Question, what's his compartment and why is it the ultimate treasure trove? Answer, even if you don't believe me, I think we can agree the bio department would have more info than me by conversation with them alone. This is before we even include leadership. Okay, so he thinks that obviously the bio department is a more important department, and then leadership. Yeah, I would agree with that. Question, are they following SpaceX operations? Answer, they respond rather quickly to any type of rocketry. I imagine they will be.
ULA has now filed a lawsuit against the FAA to block SpaceX's Starship Florida plan, questioning Starship's ability to reach the moon and Mars.
Question, didn't make any noise, was completely black, like black metal. There's no way a being could resist that sharp turn without turning into a puddle of blood. Answer, they make noise but not very much of it. Also, they can stop inertia when we struggle with that. When we still struggle with that. Question, has any writing been discovered on the crafts? Answer, yes. Or on any tools inside of them? Answer, yes. Question, if so, has it been linguistically linked to any known languages? Answer, I'm not sure, but it doesn't look like anything I've seen. Question, what specifics of the propulsion system can you reveal? Answer, I covered this already, but as far for the Mercury comment, no. Oh, I guess somebody's asking if there's mercury involved. Question, if the U.S. Navy, etc. knows where the construction facility is? Answer, they don't. Question, a lot of Bob Lazar's is proven bullshit. Answer, sauce, question mark. Now, sauce in 4chan language means source. So he's asking, if you think it's BS, give me the source. Maybe we'll get an answer on that. Question, it's interesting that he doesn't know the lore of Bob Lazar. Like, all he knows is that Bob Lazar was mentioned. 115 was mentioned. And he knows, like, that story. He doesn't know any of the deep Bob Lazar lore that exists on the internet. There's a whole dark history on Bob Lazar that people have speculated exists. And that's the reason, you know, he has this story. It's a deep rabbit hole. But this guy's not even aware of that. So I find it really interesting that this person here who could be LARPing, could be creating this universe, has very good universe building components and yet missed a really big one. Like, if you're going to build something around Bob Lazar, you want to make sure you've seen every angle, right? And so it's interesting that he hadn't. Either he's an unprepared liar or, yeah, it's real. Question, what does the interior of the craft look like? Please describe it in detail. Answer, I already did this. It's always cramped and hard to stand fully upright. For reference, I'm 5'8". Oh, interesting that he would give away his height. There's almost never a storage facility unless it is dedicated to something for the craft. There's always a method of interacting with the craft. Tools are not freely placed around the craft, they have dedicated placement. Question, have you only ever entered / seen orbs? Answer, the hammers? If so, yes, I've used them. What? You've used them? Question, or have you been involved with discs too? Answer, no. Be more specific. Question, it sounds like the Tic Tacs or cigar-shaped ones are transports nobody has gotten a hold of, right? Answer, cigar shapes are very rare. Correct. We were told finding one would be career-changing. We suspect they are transports, but ultimately don't know. Question, there are many stories of crashed discs. Please elaborate. Answer, I've never seen a disc. Question, I'm curious to know what you think. Answer, prior to the zookeeper comment, I thought they looked down on us as vile and worthless with intent to destroy everything around us. So before he was told the zookeeper thing, he thought they were just chum. Question, what role do you think Space Force will play in disclosure moving forward? Answer, openly stated to us, discovery for internal use and disinformation to the public. Wow. Question, what can we use as a populace to encourage your bosses to lighten up? Good question. Answer, this has always been on my mind. I think if we convinced another nation like China or Russia to come out, the US would have to come out as well. I think having the United States Air Force release their footage was a way to jumpstart SpaceX in a way. That would be a good strategy, though, to get like China or Russia to open up, and then like US would have to fall suit. But I'm sure there's some type of agreement behind the curtain there. Question: the Pentagon has already reported that legit UAPs are off-world vehicles not made of this Earth, while OP is claiming they are made in facilities in the ocean. Answer: I stated multiple times we've seen them come and go from the planet. We suspect the construction facility is capable of space travel as well. Question: he also stated that they were all unmanned. Answer: reading comprehension issue. I said most of them are unmanned today. This is not strictly the case, and in prior years we dealt with piloted craft quite often. Even I know this. Guys, come on, if you're going to ask this guy a question, do your homework. Question: people with security clearances that large don't just get on 4chan to spill the beans. Answer: you're not wrong, and if it makes you feel better, watching my internet take a shit last night made me panic a bit, if I'm being honest. I could have just ignored your post too. So he's fessing up. He's kind of like, yeah, I am scared. My computer glitched and I thought, you know, he was panicking. Answer: I do not have free access to everything. Visiting crash sites comes with a lot of information by default though. Right. You're probably read into the, the entire thing on a baseline level. Question: providing zero evidence towards his claim. Also the burden of proof fallacy. Answer: was I supposed to steal data from work and post it freely here? How about a copy of my clearance or work badge? Yes, Anon, let me just out myself completely. He's getting pretty defensive about this stuff. Now, that could be defensive because he's mad that we're not believing his truth, or he's trying to cover a lie, That I learned from Spidey. If you haven't checked that episode out, behavioral analyst Spidey helped me out in looking at whistleblowers. Question: okay, so element 115 provide the weak gravity field and the engine amplify the phenom through resonance? Answer: the gravity field remains the same for element 115, but the output from the engine produces almost all of the gravity used for travel. Question: was the language that Bob Lazar leaked completed? Answer: I've never seen it. Can you post a picture of it? Question: any info about crop circles? Answer: never seen one or heard of it being relevant. All right, fair enough. He's in the ocean. No crops in the ocean. Question: I have a few questions, if you please. Answer: you have a lot, so I'm not answering every single thing. Question: has there been any unusual effects on the environment/wildlife? Answer: no, they do study animals. Question: why or how are they avoiding Mexico? Answer: one area around there is a bad crash zone for them. Question: why was 2002 a big year? Answer: a lot of activities and changes in operation, both for them and us. A lot of secrecy issues surfaced that year as a result. Funding also jumped through the roof. Question: is the lob stressful? Answer: very. Strained my marriage greatly. Question: does it have anything to do with your illness? Answer: I wondered about that, but ultimately I'll never know. Oh, so he's asking if maybe, the interaction with the components has anything to do with his illness, and he'd wonder that himself. Yeah, that would be something I would wonder too. Question: what kind of training and qualifications are needed to work in this field? Answer: your record needs to be clean as F. Education can vary. Question: do you listen to public sightings or go off on your own agency's intel? Answer: agency intel all the way. Nearly all of it is passed verbally in person. Right, they don't want a paper trail. Question: how does the government prevent or respond to potential national security threats posed by UFOs coming, going in and out of the atmosphere, in the ocean, etc.? Answer: wait for crashes. The only time everyone is all hands on deck is if they screw with nukes. We mostly just watch and wait for them to F up. Question: just to steal, learn tech? Answer: this. Huh. Question: MJ12. Answer: that term is more of a history lesson than anything now. So he's saying MJ12 is done with. They've moved on from that. It's probably got new names. Question: then just say it, coward. Probably referring to the name of the project. Answer: would you like my address too? Question: OP, if you're dying, why can't you just tell us the department name and share some photos of the documents? Answer: I'd like to appreciate what little I have left. See the above post about last night. So he's referring to him, not getting any sleep. Question: why do you think cloaking technology is not employed by UAPs? It shouldn't be that difficult to bend light. Answer: I wish I could show you one of the images from our training. Sometimes we get lucky and find very odd variants of UFOs. Same setup as usual, but with interesting additions. Question: do you know where in space they come from? Any star system in particular? Answer: higher-ups knew. I never did. Question: any craft found on Earth that was ancient? Answer, none that I saw. Question, what is it like keeping everything a secret from humanity? What do you do for work? Answer, I travel and do inspections for the government. Boring stuff, really. Yeah, so boring. Question, do you have any idea what's going on in there? Answer, first I've heard of it. Makes me wonder if there were others that did what I did, but in different areas. Question, plasma physics has developed greatly in the past few decades. Answer, you should be paying attention to things like this long after I leave. Laser technology too. All right. Keep an eye on that, folks. Laser technology and plasma. Could you imagine being in like the 1940s and listening to us talk right now about this stuff? Be like laser, plasmas, UFO, and crash retrieval. How insane this would all sound right now. Just out of context. Just give that a thought experiment for a second. That is wild. We live in a great time, folks. Question, we're going to hit the bump limit before OP comes back. Answer, half the thread wants me to keep going, so I'll likely remake. So he has to remake another thread before they hit the limit. Might need to wait a bit before the weekend. Will be busy for me. Question, the abductees that are returned who are monitored, how are those individuals dealt with? Answer, I suspect another department handles that. We do nothing with them from my end. So he suspects there's a department devoted solely to the abductees. That is frightening. There's also a lot of talk in the abduction circles about potentially humans working with the ETs throughout these abductions, like some type of agreement they have or some type of like joint test they're doing and hybridization program. It's very, very strange. Question, do we know why certain individuals are selected? Answer, not at all, but they like picking from remote areas exposed to radiation or disease. This was mentioned prior. Question, capabilities to remove someone, let us say, from a building in a large city without civilians noticing. Answer, they have to get quite close to start the abduction process. Never seen it happen freely in a crowded city. Taking a break until later this evening. As I mentioned, weekend is busy. If the thread dies, I'll attempt to do another one. Now, clearly the question is referring to the Manhattan alien abduction, Linda Corteil. If you haven't seen that on Netflix, watch that. It's genuinely interesting. But there's a lot more to the story than what they let go on Netflix. Netflix kind of did them dirty, and I do believe Linda and the Bud Hopkins estate are currently suing Netflix for their depiction of what happened, because apparently it's not the full story. I haven't read Bud Hopkins' Witness yet. It's something that I've been meaning to read, but I've spoken to people who have dove into this subject quite extensively, and they can say for a fact that there was a lot that they left out, and they purposely made this kind of look like a hoax. It was very weird. Something to look into. All right, so this is a new thread that the OP is posting to keep the conversation going. This is on Friday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, 2023. It's been a bit of a rough week for me. It's still going to be a rough week for me, so I may not reply as much. Drop your questions and criticisms, and I'll answer them as best I can. I'll address some of the other questions I saw elsewhere below. I don't know anything about the Moon Man post. No interest in a trip code. It sounds pretentious. You should be skeptical. Over time, though, I think a lot of people will find themselves coming back to what I said. And this is multiple times he repeats this, and that's the one thing that's really stuck with me. It's also the reason we're reading this before the hearing, so you guys go into that hearing well-informed. OP says, I wanted to go out of my way to answer this one. So the question is, tools with anti-gravitational properties or any portable anti-gravity devices? Answer, very few. Lots of them emit radiation. Question, close encounters are seen with red lights and some orange? Answer, orange is a mineral bioscanning mode. Since most people see orange up close, they are likely being scouted/selected for an abduction. It can see your heart beating and even the valves pushing the blood inside, just to add some perspective. Whoa. Now, although orange doesn't seem like a very terrifying light, to me that is undoubtedly terrifying. And I imagine that these orbs of light, these hammers, are unmanned as well. They're probably just AI drones. Question, red should be defense mode. Just wondering why some close encounters are with red lights. Answer, correct. Red lights are considered defense mode. If red lights are present, chances are the craft wants to leave and has to keep an eye on you while they wrap up. Red also allows very accurate calculation of distance and can detect hostility based on facial expression, etc. If a weapon is fired, the beam is white. Question, do these ships emit any kind of radiation? Answer, yes. Question, landing places always have traces of radiation. Is this BS or is there anything behind it? Answer, this is mostly correct. The source is not the landing and is the craft itself. Question, is any obtained tech nowadays being used commercially? Something we could all know. Answer, lasers. You see lasers everywhere in retail. Now, we covered this briefly last time, and I showed you a clip of a laser scanning this car. And that clip was actually shared by Tom DeLong, interestingly enough. It seems very real, by the way. Question, super high security wrapped facility hiding in plain sight? Answer, both. Now, OP refers to not getting sleep, and he says, I'm pretty effed already. Not too worried. I say that, but the internet glitched the night I made the first thread, and I panicked enough to sleep with a revolver. I skipped some questions to tackle ones I haven't been asked about. Sorry. Question, are the aliens, LMAOs, aware of computer tech? Answer, they know about ours, yes. I doubt they could operate ours with our input device, though. Question, do they have something like digital communication? Answer, chance communication to computer, and you kind of nail it. Oh, change, not chance. He made a typo. Okay. And you kind of nail it. Describing their version of a console/computer is really hard. It works by holding it and thinking about what you want. If you are distracted even slightly, it goes to shit. That is so interesting. That's what I wanted to hear. That is so crazy. A technology that interfaces with consciousness to the point that you have to be so tuned in, like probably in like some type of like zone state, some flow state, some meditative consciousness altered state that you have to be in to even activate these things. It makes me think, you know, you hear the CE5 stuff and this contacting alien stuff. I've always had a theory. So there's this thing with Stephen Greer, and other people have said this too outside of Greer, that you can sort of mentally connect with these ETs that are up in the sky. I've always thought, what if we're accidentally hijacking these things? It seems to me to really make these things appear, you lock in coordinates of where you are in a meditative state, projecting that outwards, you know, onto this alien craft. But what if we're actually hijacking these UFOs? And that's why they appear during these meditations. We aren't summoning them. We're literally driving them. Interesting hypothesis. I'll respond to a few just before I stop. Once again, if the thread closes, I'll make a new one if time and energy permit. There is a lockbox that I've asked to be opened after my death. Hopefully part of that makes it to this board as I've instructed. I've not heard about this lockbox. Could be that OP is still alive. Question, what have we used them for? Okay, so they're talking about the tech, perhaps. Answer, modifying them to fire human the UFOs. Modifying them to fire human weapons is a big thing. Generally trying to test and research ways to reduce inertia. Question, are they exclusively testbed vehicles or do they get used for ISR? Answer, testing is all I've heard. I imagine we didn't stop there and I'm just uninformed. Question, have we taken them out of the atmosphere? Answer, yes, a lot. Question, how extensive are the DoD underground facilities and the tunnel systems? Answer, the facility I worked in was underground and ground level. They span for miles. Definitely not DoD, so no idea. Question, little to no activity here in Florida. Answer, you have a better chance of seeing them in the middle of nowhere. They don't venture populated areas often. Question, is the element 115 really 100% proven to be an isotope of moscovium, or is this just a code name / misinformation to hide some arcane power source? I've never heard of an arcane power source. The older members of our team, when I first joined, joking called the construction facility Atlantis in passing once or twice. Question, are you Air Force? Air Force? No. Question, Karen Seamount is an underwater volcano in the Atlantic Ocean. He says the construction facility never goes near it. I can say that much. Okay. He's answering to somebody else. He says, you think UFO crash sites are illusions. Crazy people don't excite me. Fascinating how a person claiming that they've worked on reverse engineering alien technology in an underground base is calling a skeptic crazy. We live in a very interesting time, folks. I also am of the mind that within the next few years, anyone denying the presence of, at the very minimum, UAP, and at the maximum, extraterrestrials is going to sound crazy. Question, could a human physically best them? Answer, I'm not an expert, but probably. Their size and frame are one reason they don't make it through the crashes often. Question, wouldn't it be easier for them to mine all the gold they need in some asteroid and bring it to Earth? Answer, I haven't really covered much on the resourcing end of operations, but we believe they do this for certain elements. Gold doesn't appear to be one of them. All right, so question, purely efficiency ad engineering driven? Answer, I've never seen anything emotionally driven in their craft. Okay, so he's asking if it's only engineering rather than emotions or anything else. Question, if so, maybe they're really soulless race, drones genetically degenerate or engineered. Answer, that's one theory. The US mostly believes they are just military, as I previously discussed. Wow. So my theory of them being like soulless AI drones is plausible. The US mostly believes they're just military. They're like soldiers. Question, do you know the stealth capabilities of the ships? I assume not all have the same characteristics, but there's some baseline. Answer, these crafts are so rare we actually almost never see them crash because we can't track them. We only recently started finding craft with stealth capabilities. Maybe 1 in 20 has stealth technology. Question, but there's some baseline. Different internals, same stealth tech. Made to spec like I said. I have to perform, quote unquote, I have to perform 2 abductions. Make me a craft to fit 2 prisoners and 4 crew and shape it to fit perfectly with all my tools. Again, speaking to the built to specifications comment that he keeps referring, like, if you got to abduct 2 people, there needs to be a place to hold 2 people, etc. Interesting. Question, I don't know if you've answered this already, but what do they know about the underwater pyramid and complex near Cuba? Answer, first I've heard about it. Question, did you work for the government before your current UFO job? If so, mind telling us? Answer, yes. Question, and can you tell us what did you study back then? Answer, absolutely not. You can probably guess easily though. Question, and is this construction facility somehow related to the incident that happened back in 2019 west of San Diego? Answer, rumors and questions because we weren't tracking them at the time. Question, do our conventional weapons have any capability against the UAPs? Answer, they look like they would go down to a pistol. In reality though, I'm not sure. Question, what about the lasers that are being tested against UAVs and rockets? Answer, wouldn't surprise me even slightly. They do nearly everything with light and lasers. Question, what are your thoughts on the Baltic Sea anomaly? Crashed UFO or just a weird-looking geological thing? Answer, doesn't stand out to me. I also don't know what a few decades under an ocean does to them either. Speaking of which, the main construction facility does not rust or deteriorate from what we can tell. Which would make sense because apparently Bob Lazar's craft that he worked on was... See, that's the thing. I think I heard this, and I'm not sure if I heard it from Bob, but apparently the craft that he worked on, rumors had it that this craft was found in some type of excavation underwater and dates back to like 10,000 years. That's rumors, though. But that might be just misinfo to see who's spreading that information. Because if that was the case, then they wouldn't speculate on whether or not this has been around for a long time. But interesting that it doesn't rust. Question, it was even stopping electrical equipment when ships were sailing over. Answer, they have this ability. Question, did anything surprising or unexpected ever happen at the crash sites? Answer, the first thread has a few instances. The first body I ever saw spooked me. Almost didn't think it was real. Okay, so he's referring to also when the doors were closing on him. Question, why not tell everyone if there's so much evidence? Answer, because most governments think the local population is stupid. They're not wrong. On for a bit here and there today. We've got like half a dozen pages left here, folks. How are we doing? Question, are they using resources from Earth to build these ships or drones? Answer, we think the harder to find elements come from off-world, but partially, yes. Question, if so, does that mean we would have means to do the same and just don't have the knowledge? Answer, lack of knowledge and a few other elements. The thought was passed around frequently about the level of heat required to shape the alloy. We've wondered if that's another reason it sits in the ocean. Question, what form of language do these aliens use? Answer, I mentioned that in previous thread. I asked for the images from another Anon. It looks similar. I want to see more. So he was shown the images of what Bob saw.
Hey, currently editing this part here where I talk about the language. Now, I think the OP might have slipped up in this particular instance because when he was given the image by one of the people on 4chan, the person sent images, but he also said that those images were from Bob Lazar, which they were not. OP sees these images and responds positively. He says, looks similar, I want to see more. And I believe he talks about these symbols later on again. The symbols that were shared with him don't look anything like what Bob Lazar saw. Now, there's no way that OP could have known this because what Bob Lazar saw wasn't really public knowledge, I think. So now it looks like the OP is just agreeing based on the fact that this is supposedly from Bob Lazar, which it isn't. It's from the Carrot documents, another alleged leak that happened, probably fake, highly resembles Japanese katakana. It also has some other features that make us think it's probably just human and it's probably just some really elaborate hoax or prank. But he gets very excited about this particular language that you're looking at now. And it's not what Bob Lazar saw. This is what Bob Lazar saw. Very, very different. You see there's no hard lines, there's more rounded edges, and more dots, actually. So unless OP is just confused, perhaps, but personally, I don't think that these two things look alike that much. Let me know what you think.
Question, if you were to classify them on a Kardashev scale, what type are they? Answer, not my area of knowledge. I'm learning lots during these investigations. Is a method of measuring a civilization's level of technological advancement based on the amount of energy it is capable of harnessing. Oh, right, like a type 1, type 2 civilization. Question, perhaps they want us to know they exist? Answer, I think they don't care that we know. If anything, the threat of being able to harm our nukes is enough alone. They don't care that we know. They just don't care. They're not trying to be like, hey, we're here, hey, we're not here. They just don't care. We're beneath them. Question, are they carbon-based life forms like us? What are they based of? Answer, not my area again. From what I could see and tell, yes. Question, do you think there's a chance we are their creation/experiment? Answer, we both look very similar. It wouldn't surprise me, and I'm inclined to think so. Question, what are your theories on UFO frenzy of February? They downed 3 crafts and then nada. This is about the incursions over U.S. airspace and Canadian airspace that they've sent F-22s to sort of down. Answer, we never see that many downed unless we found a good way to intercept them. Question, can they manipulate consciousness? Are they related to the mystery of life after death? Answer, no idea. Question, do they have portable weapons like phasers or ray guns? If so, please describe. Answer, they do have weapons. I've never seen one held, though, and suspect the first team always took them away. Looking at the abduction tools and the general capability of the construction facility, I wouldn't want to face off against one. Question, I like how OP asked you for a source on this. Answer, don't confuse interest with the burden of proof. Question, while being totally unwilling to provide their own proofs. Answer, sure, let me just walk on through the Golden Gates and get that for you, Anon. Would you like me to drop off your resume while I'm there? Question, is this factory craft on duty as Firewatch of sorts? Answer, the U.S. believes this is the case. That, or it's in preparation for something more. Very ominous answer right there. Question, conversely, is there propulsion enough to say they are a colony coexisting here? Answer, it wouldn't surprise me if they had a base off-world nearby or even on Earth. We never saw consistent stops that would indicate a base. I also now believe it may not be the only facility with everyone talking about the Arctic. These craft never really went near the Arctic either. So he's really driven this point home. He's stuck on this point. He's fascinated by the fact that he never gave it any thought before, which is interesting. So during that time, he might have thought, this is the only place I'm very lucky to be working here. And coming back and sort of zooming out, now he's realizing, man, there might be more of these. But it's interesting that he didn't have that thought while he was there. Question, what resources are they mining or monitoring or attracted to? Answer, they consistently mine gold. Wait, but didn't he say? I haven't really covered much on the resourcing end of operations, but we believe they do this for certain elements. Gold doesn't appear to be one of them. Wouldn't it be easier for them to mine all the gold they need in some asteroid and bring it to Earth? I think the original comment that we're referring to where it says, why don't they mine off an asteroid and come back to Earth? I think they might be referring to the Chinese, where he says gold doesn't appear to be one of the things they're mining. Okay, because that would explain it. Question, want to talk about mapping or LiDAR? Answer, interesting you mentioned LiDAR. Question, I mean tech we don't know how to use / distribute yet? Answer, you should keep watching the development of laser technology. Looking at it from a civilian with a higher understanding, it looks like a do-all tool. Mining quite literally takes the resource out of the rock without leaving much dirt. China still scares us. Question, does Karen seamount in the Atlantic between the Bermuda and Virginia have anything to do with it, with the aliens? He says, answer, no idea. It moves constantly and doesn't really leave traces. He's talking about, he made this joke earlier about probes and anal probing, and he says, I figured most people realized the anal probe joke was an obvious cue. We haven't seen any females. We did talk in great depths about reasons why. We think it's mainly a military operation, or they just don't have them, hence male only. So they have genitals? Weird. How does he know that? Are they naked? It's weird that he would comment on the sex of the alien after only seeing a body. I guess hearing about it. It's very strange. Question, could we find evidence that the factory mothership has extracted materials from the ocean floor or the Earth's crust to produce the UAPs? Answer, it sends out UAPs to extract quite often. Yes, we have yet to really see them mine the ocean floor since it's harder to know that far down. The last miner we looked at had a huge haul of gold, iron, and silver. No dirt. Question, where does the most exotic material, Moscovium I assume, come from? Answer, off-world. Question, I don't think element 115 is that big of a deal off-Earth. Answer, the main source of power. We really wanted to see how the construction facility is powered. Question, what is amazing are their alloys. They have alloys that are impossible to reproduce. Answer, correct. Question, element 115 nuclei last for milliseconds before disintegrating under lab conditions. Answer, correct. Still a massive problem. He says time travel was never mentioned seriously, but he's asking about the image of the writing, and he's saying, do you have more of the image you posted? Serious question. He's very interested in this. Question, what races of aliens we know actually exist? Answer, never had another one mentioned other than the ones I described. Question, if they interfere when there's a nuclear threat, why didn't they prevent World War II nukes? Answer, we talked about this a lot, and honestly, we never came to a solid conclusion, other than they might not have realized our capability until we used them. They were interested in test sites, but never actually stopped the ones we set off. Question, why is there so much alien activity in Mexico? Answer, Bermuda Triangle is right next door to Mexico. They also avoid certain parts because they crash there often. Question, the aliens are literally hanging out with Indian tribes in Sonora and taking people on tours of other planets. Answer, sauce? Question mark. So he's asking for the source. Question, what do they do with one of these drones once it's finished its task? Answer, they are not exclusively drones. It returns to the construction facility. Question, you said that they only make them right before they use them. Answer, yes, built to spec every time they launch as far as we can tell. Question, what do they do with them after it's been used? Answer, based on heat signatures, likely smelted back down into parts. Question, either way, it's probably related to Blue Eisenhower, November, whether he knows it or not. Answer, explain. I'm learning as well. So the OP says here he's learning at the same time, because he's not apparently familiar with, UFO lore. And I think the question is referred to the Eisenhower meeting when Eisenhower allegedly met with the aliens and we've had first contact. Whole other thing. But I think his granddaughter to this day confirms that story. Question, why is this image to start your threads? Answer, saw the release on TV and laughed because USAF is so far in the dark. Oh, because he used the Tic Tac image or the gimbal image. So he's actually laughing at the United States Air Force. Question, is this a project you work on? Answer, not a specific UFO, probably not. The one in the picture of my post is definitely real. Oh, so he's saying the one in the picture is real. Question, what sort of reporting structure do you / did you have at your UAP job? Answer, I'm hesitant to go over this detail. I would love to explain though. Question, are there any guidelines or procedures for releasing info to the public that you're aware of? Answer, for me, it was, what the USAF knows and nothing else ever. And things like the Space Force are going to be disinformation based. Question, any idea why new management was so hell-bent on changing course? Answer, new management coming in thinking they can make sweeping changes and fix everything while impressing their leadership, if I had to guess. Should be on tomorrow night if all goes well. It's interesting because in the Wilson memos, after Thomas Wilson was poking around the private sector, Lockheed Martin, that type of thing, looking for these black projects that were outside of the government but still very classified and top secret. He had heard, apparently, and I heard this from Richard Dolan, this private corporation was audited at one point, and one of the auditors had to be read into the program because he accidentally saw something he shouldn't have seen. And finding out there was only like 500 people read into this top secret program. And since then, they doubled down on security. And so that could be at the same time this new management came into, to this. Question, how on earth would it be possible to maintain a secret with such a large amount of people constantly in the know? Not just over years, but literally decades. It's a great question and one that's posed by many skeptics. Answer, that's just it. They haven't been able to maintain secrecy. There's a major reason the previous management didn't mind us being so open with each other. If you mean more historically, as in the past 20 years, or more now, you know why I find references to MJ-12 funny. Secrecy is all but gone. Now it's just about obfuscation and misinformation. Right. So nothing's secret, the information is out there, it's just mixed among misinformation and obfuscation. That is how you function in the world. You don't hide something, you create so much BS that you mix it in with the real stuff and you can never tell what's real. It's more than hiding a needle in a haystack, it's hiding a needle in a stack of needles. Question, what is the extent of contractor or third-party involvement in their work? Answer, not as often as you imagine. We do use them though. Okay. Question, Anon mentioned Lockheed last thread. Answer, such a great company, aren't they? Definitely wouldn't be the type to try and leak things to the public. Now, is that sarcasm or is that, I don't know. I know the first part is sarcasm, but question, are there work contracts that go out for UAP work? Answer, you normally have to sign and agree to a contract. Question, what kind of language is put out in the government's acquisition channels to indicate project is UAP or UAP adjacent? Answer, none. They show up and tell you where you'll be and what you'll do. You have to be top tier in your field. You also have to be so clean you've never seen a speeding ticket. Question, compartmentalization. Most don't 100% know what's permissible to discuss, but they know what who 100% isn't. Add on the threat of legal and criminal action and family and loved ones. It's quite easy to understand how it happens. This question is basically referring to the question above about like how can you keep this a secret, and he's addressing the fact that like A, compartmentalization, so you only know very little piece of the puzzle, and B, the threat of criminal and legal action because of the NDAs that you've signed. You're going to lose all your pension, you're going to lose your job, and you'll probably lose future jobs because the security clearances that these people have in the military don't end when they retire. Most of these people go into the private sector, and that security, those permissions and that clearance transfers over to the private sector, and probably they get more added on after that. So answer is, the Anon nailed it perfectly. This was changing until new management showed up. Question, any ability to prove it? Answer, I'm willing to work with you on ideas. You might like what I have up my sleeve closer to the end. He's a magician now, is he? Question, favorite ice cream? Answer, vanilla sprinkles. Question, when Oumuamua was spotted, were there concerns in your circles that it could be related to the construct? Answer, a few places panic with every odd sighting here and there. We know almost instantly by looking at gravity and speed. Question, how other countries know about the existence of this underwater facility? Answer, the same way we do. They've been looking at crash sites as long as we have. Question, I know last thread you said it's all hands-on-deck situation if these crafts start messing with our nukes. Answer, correct. Question, does this happen often? Answer, about once every 10 years for the US. We suspect other countries have had similar issues and reactions. Question, what kind of reaction is there when these events occur? Answer, a higher-up joked months after the last one I saw. Quote unquote, the phone rings everywhere but the president's office. In the same instance mentioned above, they deployed multiple craft and a sub with serious intent. The sub didn't arrive in time. Fighters probably never saw the end coming. Question, is this thread related to underwater structure that Gordon Cooper cited and Discovery Channel had to cancel that show for 3 seasons? Answer, nothing in those pictures rings a bell. If you see the construction facility, you'll know. You can't miss it. As for if they were instructed to leave, that could be true. Okay. Last one. Question, your answer on tools you found in vehicles makes you seem like you are LARPing. There must have been more advanced and intruding tools than a toothpick. Answer, I had to think about this one for multiple reasons, and I think I'll cover the abduction tools in greater detail. There are tools that induce a childlike state or something akin to having a stroke. We covered that. The tools I didn't talk about are the ones that are designed to take objects the size of pills and push them deep into your tissue and stomach. These tools aren't friendly and don't account for extreme pain. There's also another tool that looks like a circular battery you would find in a key fob, designed for keeping your eyes open when deployed. It also stops the eye from moving almost perfectly. Subsequent to this, people have continued asking questions in this thread over and over and over and over, only to have them ignored. Speculation obviously leads to one of 2 things, or one of 3 things. He got sick of his own jokes, stopped posting. Weird way to end it, by the way. If you are LARPing, you would probably want to finalize it, right? If you're creating this story, it's weird to end it there. Reason number 2, he's dead. Reason number 3, they got to him. See reason number 2. He did have a dead man switch in place though, with some lockbox apparently, so that's interesting. Maybe one day we'll see the contents of that. That'd be very interesting. But I also don't underestimate the power of the internet to make up this type of story, or following stories that will come from this. I think we have to be extremely vigilant when it comes to this stuff, especially in a day and age where AI has almost surpassed our ability to tell a story in specific detail, right? AI makes mistakes, obviously, but it's getting very good. And it's getting very good at filling plot holes. And so we do have to be wary and aware of that, which is why it's, one thing to read posts, it's another thing to see someone's face as they're saying it, as they're telling it, Yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode, what you guys take away from this. I'm very curious to see if you've caught anything that I've missed, which is potentially a reality. It's given me a lot to think about, and I won't lie that anytime I hear the government speak of UAP, or I hear some new type of information has surfaced regarding abductees, regarding sightings, regarding crash retrieval, regarding USOs, my mind always comes back to this. Just like OP said. Now, hearing tomorrow, we will be streaming it on our Discord. If you want to join in on the fun, it'll be a stream for everyone. The hearing will be on YouTube for free, but we can chat about it on Discord at the same time. So if you guys want to join, I'll leave the link there below. Also, if you guys want to support this channel even more and get more content than you're getting now, if once a week isn't enough for you, then I would definitely sign up to the Patreon or the YouTube membership. Both links are below. They both lead to the same things. You have a ton of extra content there, weekly episodes and weekly updates of what's going on, plus behind the scenes investigation stuff. A whole lot of fun. We're pouring a ton of energy into that right now, and we'll be continuing to do so. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I do appreciate all your support on this channel so far. Let's keep going. Let's keep seeking, learning, and growing this channel together. I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace.